In Chapter 12, we're going to go over some basic statistical concepts. We're going to start with graphs. When discussing statistics, you hear the word data a lot. Data refers to a collection of measurement numbers that describe some specific characteristic of an object or person or group of objects or people. But it's very difficult to use a bunch of numbers. So we use graphs to display those numbers so that they're easier to use and understand. The first type of graph we're going to talk about is a bar graph. A bar graph is used to compare the sizes of different but related quantities. You can look at the lengths of the bars to get a general sense of magnitude, but you can't necessarily get an exact number from a bar graph. For example, this graph is a graph of the annual healthcare costs per person in various countries from 2015. So if we want to determine the approximate cost per person of healthcare in the United States from this bar graph, we can see that it's about $9,500. We don't know exactly because we don't have the scale on the left scale, but we can tell that it's about halfway between 9,000 and 10,000. Two other types of bar graphs are stacked bar and multiple bar graphs, and they look very similar to this type of bar graph. The next type of bar graph we're going to discuss is a line graph or broken line graph. It's a display that shows the change in a quantity over time. Time is always displayed along the horizontal axis, and the numerical scale is always shown on the vertical axis. So if we look at this monthly tire sales at Treadwell Tire Company, we can see that from January to March, they increased. Then they plummeted in April, and then they had a nice upward trend through August, and then from August through the end of the year, they decreased dramatically. The third type of graph we're going to discuss is circle graphs or pie charts. A circle graph or pie chart is used to show what percentage of the whole some quantity is represented by the separate parts. This is an example of the distribution of questions on a comprehensive welding exam. All of the portions add up to 100%. So we can see that welding applications questions were 30%, quality control was 16%, gouging applications were 8%, and so on. Now we're going to move into some measures of central tendency for statistical data. The name measures of central tendency imply that these measures represent a central or middle value of the set. There are three measures that we're going to discuss: the mean, the median, and the mode. The arithmetic mean is also referred to as simply the mean or the average. We determine the mean by taking the sum of all the data values and dividing it by the number of data values. If the mean is not an exact number, we round it to one decimal digit more than the least precise data value in the set unless otherwise indicated. So that means if our data is given to us with one decimal point, then we want to report the answer to 2 decimal points. An example, an airplane mechanic was asked to prepare an estimate of the cost for an annual inspection of a small Bonanza aircraft. The mechanic's records show that 8 prior inspections on the same type of plane had required these particular measurements. So we want to find the mean inspection time. So we sum all of the measurements and we put it over the number of measurements. When we sum all of these, we get 81.4. The number of measurements is 8. So 81.4 divided by 8 equals 10.175. We need to round it to 1 decimal point more than the data, so that means we rounded to 2 decimal points, and that would make it 10.18 hours. To complete his cost estimate, the mechanic would multiply this mean inspection time by his hourly labor charge. There's a way to use your calculator to find the mean. So, hit the Stat key, then select Edit, then Enter. Input your data into column L1. Then hit the Stat key, go to Calc, select number 1, var stats. Make sure L1 is after the word list by using the second key and the number 1 key, and then enter 3 times. X bar is the mean of your data. Median. Another commonly used measure of central tendency is the median. The median of a set of data values is the middle value when all the values are arranged in order from smallest to largest. As an example, a machine shop produces 7 copies of a steel disc. The thicknesses of the discs, as measured by a vernier caliper, are in inches, 1.738, 1.741, 1.738, etc. Find the median value. So first, to determine the median thicknesses, we have to arrange them in order of magnitude from smallest to largest. So we arrange them from smallest to largest. The middle value is 1.739 because there are 3 values less than the measurement and 3 values greater than this measurement. So the median thickness is 1.739. The median for an even number of data points is a little different. Since there's no middle point, the way to find the median of a set of data that has an even number of data points is the average of the 2 middle data points. The median and the mean are the 2 most commonly used averages in statistical analysis. The median tends to be more representative when the set of data contains relatively few values that are either much larger or much smaller than the rest of the numbers. The mean of such a set will be skewed toward these extreme values. So if you have a set of data that's pretty close together, but one of your data is way outside the others, then your mean will be very skewed because that piece of data that's far outside the others is going to shift the data. The final measure of central tendency is mode. This is the least used of all the measures of central tendency. The mode of a set of data is the value that occurs most often in the set. If there's no value that occurs most often, then there's no mode. If there's more than one that occurs with the greatest frequency, then each of those is considered to be the mode. An example. A daily survey revealed the following prices for a gallon of regular unleaded gasoline at various stations in a certain metropolitan area. Find the mean, median, and mode of this data. Turn off your video, try it yourself, and then we'll go through the solution. For the mean, you sum all of these data points and put them over the number of data points. So the sum of all the data is 24.74, and there are 10 data points, so you put it over 10. So the mean is $2.47. To find the median, we want to arrange the data in ascending order. Once we do that, we find that there are 10 points. That's an even number. So to find the median, we take the 2 middle points and we average them. In this case, the 2 middle points here are the 5th and 6th points. 2.45 plus 2.49 divided by 2 gives us a median of $2.47. For mode, there is one number that has the most occurrences, and that is $2.39. We're going to talk about group frequency distribution. When a set of data contains a lot of values, it can be very difficult and cumbersome to deal with that many data values. In such cases, oftentimes we condense the data into a form known as a frequency distribution. In a frequency distribution, data values are often placed into groups of the same size, and these groups are known as classes. The number of points that fall in each of those classes is tallied and is used as the frequency of that class. Sometimes we need to refer to the size or width of the classes, so we define the class width as the difference between the lower limits of 2 consecutive classes. So let's look at one of these frequency distributions. So here's the data, and here is a constructed grouped frequency distribution. So you can see that there are 7 classes in this frequency distribution, and each of the class widths is 10. And you can tell this by subtracting the lower number from 2 consecutive class widths. So for instance, for the first 2, 29 minus 19 equals 10. and that's the class width. For the next one, you can confirm 39 minus 29 also equals 10, and all of these will equal 10. But that's how you determine the class width. The tally is the number of times the data appears in the data set in each of these different classes. So for instance, for the class 10 to 19, those numbers appeared 6 times in the data set, and so on. So this is basically a frequency distribution. So let's talk about finding the mean of group data. To calculate the mean of data that are grouped in a frequency distribution, these are the steps to do it. Using the previous data set, find the midpoint of each class, multiply each frequency by the midpoint, find the sum of the frequencies, find the sum of the products, and then divide the sum of the products from step 4 by n, which is the number of data points. Now that we've done that, and this is what it looks like in a table, we can use your calculator to do this calculation. Here's how you use your TI-8483 calculator. First, you do need to find the midpoint of each class and put that into the L1 column. Stat key, edit, and then input into the L1 column. Then you input the frequency or the tally from each of those classes into column L2. Select stat key, edit, and then put your data into L2. After you've put the data into L1 and L2, go to Stat, select Calc, option number 1 var stats. Make sure L1 is after the word list and L2 is after freq list. And again, you can get to L1 and L2 by using the second key and the numbers 1 and 2 on your calculator. Then you enter twice. You'll get a results screen with X bar as the mean.